Hiya, I'm Felicia, and as you know, I've been posting for a while now a series of videos about my experiences with the NHS, and I've been seeking help through these videos. And following the videos, I've been posting silent diaries to document the silent response from NHS England and regulatory bodies. I just wanted to make this video really as an update to that silence that I am experiencing from NHS England and from regulatory bodies. I just wanted to kind of humanise it and personalise some of the silent diaries that I've been posting, maybe to give them a bit of context about why I'm posting them, and also just to say how this feels to be in this position. It feels important part of the process. So I just really wanted to make this as an update to this silence, this from regulatory bodies. So just in brief, the 16 videos that I posted highlighted different failings at NHS trusts that I'd experienced, where I've been to try and get a diagnosis and treatment for left-sided facial pain that I've been living with for 12 years. And as part of that, I have made a request to regulatory bodies for an independent review of my condition. And the reason I've made that request is because my story isn't one where I've been to 15 NHS trusts and none of them have found anything. And, you know, if that had been the case, if they'd done all these investigations and hadn't found anything, I would accept that. But I've been to many NHS trusts and most of them have found abnormal clinical findings that they haven't either explained to me or acted on, which has forced me to live with very, very severe pain, which is worsening still today. When they've got information at their disposal that there's something wrong. And the trusts that have found these abnormal findings are Leeds Teaching Hospital, Guy's and St Thomas's, North Manchester General, possibly Charing Cross Hospital, NHS Fife, NHS Lothian, and most recently York Hospital. And it therefore feels very reasonable, being that they have all found, they have information showing that there is something clinically wrong, that it feels therefore reasonable and fair for me to ask for a review so that I can get a diagnosis and a prognosis and some treatment, but also to get answers to questions that I've been asking that aren't emotional or distress-based questions. They're rational questions based in medical evidence regarding findings that they have found. And the most pressing one is whether the soft tissue in my face and around the left side of my head is now fully calcified, because calcified tissue has shown, and I have been wondering if this pain is now calcified tissue that can't be treated. So that's why I've made this request for an independent review, because clinical findings have shown there's something wrong and hospitals haven't acted on it. And it feels very fair and reasonable to ask, therefore, for it to be reviewed. But I've not had a response for that. The second part was obviously about my mental health. So I've been in a mental health crisis for 6 years now, and it's not just like an isolated crisis. I didn't have psychiatric problems before. It's a very human response that I have fallen into crisis because of living with very, very severe pain and running into obstacles with hospitals for now 12 years, where they've got these abnormal findings and they know there's something wrong, but they're refusing to do anything. And that frustration and that exhaustion over time has worn me down and pushed me into crisis. And then coupled with that, I've faced, really severe neglect and obstacles from mental health services, from Tees-Esk and Wears Valleys, from social services who have shut down safeguarding concerns. And I've also had a GP practice trying to conceal my suicide risk with record falsification. And that element has pushed me into a very deep suicidal crisis. Partly, I think, is despair. And that led to a suicide attempt that I made in February 2025, really just because I felt and continue to feel that I couldn't hold that amount on my own. But sadly was left with no support after that by TEV and NYCC. And as part of my campaign, I have asked politely Penny Dash at the NHS chair of NHS England chair and the Care Quality Commission if they will provide some urgent mental health support for me in the absence of any support at all, which again I feel is incredibly reasonable, under what I've been through and what I'm facing in terms of obstacles. And I've also been very transparent. I don't think I will survive without any support, which I still uphold to be true. And that was in a video that I was wearing a red and white t-shirt that was posted on X and TikTok and will soon be posted on YouTube. And I've had no response from NHS England or the CQC, and please be patient. I can't refilm this, and I need to keep speaking, so please bear with me. I've been publicly ignored, which is horrific when you've been this honest, but it's also so hypocritical when Penny Dash has started her governance speaking about patient safety, to have that much power and to ignore, a patient who is in very deep crisis and has exhausted every possible option within the NHS and is asking for very, very basic support. To ignore that feels so hypocritical. It really does. It's cold and hurtful, but it feels deeply hypocritical to do that, and it does bring into questions, I think, about public accountability and what they preach about these buzzwords with patient safety, and then how they respond to patient advocates like myself trying to get the help they need. It's quite gross actually to experience, but I guess my intent is just to say how it feels on a daily basis. The coldness and the coldness, and I guess one of the things it makes me think, which is an awful thing to say, but I have a right to say it, is, I've been very actively, clear that I don't think I will make it without mental health support, and I still don't think I will. This is too much, this level of institutional silence that I'm dealing with. And it feels that their silence is somehow saying that it would be a win for them if this did end in my ending or my suicide or personal tragedy. And you could say, well, don't be stupid, Felicia, don't be so sensitive. But in a way, it feels like it would erase the story. It would allow them to cover it up, tidy up the mess, tidy up the reputational damage to all of these institutions that they're clearly protecting in their silence, particularly the mental health and North Yorkshire County Council and Ampleforth Surgery. And it somehow feels like it would be a win, it's an awful thing to say. And it's an even more awful thing to feel. But how can you not deduce anything more when you've said publicly, I'm not going to make it without any mental health support, and they blank you? So that feels awful that they would, and I may be wrong, I'm not saying I'm right, but it feels that it would somehow be a win if I went, because it would erase it quickly. They'd somehow manage, no one would question it possibly. They'd even probably cover up the actual event. But yeah, that feels really, really tough. And I guess I just want to say, before I move on to what I want to say next is, I just want to say to NHS England, this silence is your choice. It's a strategic choice you're making. It's not an administrative oversight. You will have seen these videos. I've tagged you in a lot of times. So it's a choice. You're choosing to ignore this, which I can't control. And I guess I'm saying, well, you need to own that then, however this ends. Because if it does end in my suicide, please don't come out and humour me and say, oh, it's a tragic loss, and bullshit me. Please don't. You owe me more than that. Own it. This is your choice. I'm asking you, and I'm asking you today again, to put in some urgent mental health support. This is abnormal for Tees, Escombe, Wares to have left me for this long without support in crisis, and North Yorkshire County Council. And after 12 years of what you've put me through, to offer me a bit of support, it really isn't a big ask. And if you choose to keep ignoring it, that is a strategic choice, and you need to own it. And I wanted to say that. I wanted to just briefly explain and summarize that my story, what I've been documenting through my videos and through my silent diaries, this is an institutional cover-up that I've been dealing with for 12 years. It started in the medical with my facial pain condition. It started at Leeds Teaching Hospital in 2014 with an ophthalmologist who found infection and then kicked me off the ward and stopped my antibiotics, which led to this denial about it being an infection. It then carried through to Guy's and St Thomas's in 2016, where they found abnormal findings with my parotid gland, and I believe that they weren't fully transparent at the end with a procedure, which led to me being prematurely discharged. Then went through to the North Manchester General, who did surgery and found more abnormality but didn't act on it. Then went through to Charing Cross Hospital, where I believe they've potentially deleted some MRI images, possibly. Again to NHS Fife and NHS Lothian, where they found abnormalities but covered it over and didn't act on it. Went through to James Cook Hospital, where they very badly gaslighted, and then into York Hospital, where they found these abnormal findings in 2022 and didn't take action. And I believe they didn't take action because to act on it and name it would have possibly opened up too much liability with all these other trusts. So they gaslighted me, which is what I've documented. So it started in the medical. It's then seeped through to the mental health services, with T's, Esk and Wares refusing to give me any support when I'm in crisis. They've boycotted me. They won't let me go to A&E for mental health support. They've discharged me. They've left me with no help. And most seriously, it seeped into social services, with North Yorkshire County Council ignoring 3 safeguarding concerns raised by regulatory bodies, one of which is the police. They've stopped my statutory support, went against GP guidance, psychiatric liaison guidance, and has kept my file closed and given me no support, and that's been possibly the most serious. And then finally it seeped into my current GP and before surgery, who have on a number of occasions tampered with and manipulated my records to try and conceal my suicide risk, which I believe was done because they weren't doing anything to help me, and they knew T's, Esk and Wares weren't doing anything to help me. So when I was going to A&E for help, I guess they wanted to make it go away. So they were doing that by deleting, falsifying and omitting critical information. So that's how it's worked. It's seeped into all areas. And now it is spread to the regulatory bodies who, through their silence, it feels, are now complicit in this harm and are refusing to acknowledge it, and in refusing to acknowledge it are effectively protecting it through, wanting to protect reputational and institutional image. So this is a cover-up, I feel, and it's one that may never come to light because unfortunately I'm one woman. And with other scandals like this, it normally takes more than one person to bring this to light. And with so many of them remaining silent, it may never. But I just wanted to say that this is a cover-up, I believe, an institutional cover-up. I guess I just wanted to touch briefly, going back to North Yorkshire County Council and the safeguarding concerns that they'd ignored. I mean, that is, in a way, is being the worst and continues to be really the worst, because I'm still living in North Yorkshire and I run in very regularly to one of the local councillors on the bus, which is very tough. He's got a very long face, a very cold face, and he knows what's going on. He will have seen my videos, and he kind of personalises that indifference and that coldness that I'm experiencing from North Yorkshire County Council. So I run into him on a daily basis, which is really chilling and horrible, and it's just the coldness that he personifies. So I spend a lot of my time away from there if I can. I'm not there now. I try about half of the month. I come up to the northeast area where I feel a bit safer and more at ease and away from that nastiness and that harm. But obviously the continued silence from them is very tough. I just obviously want to touch briefly on obviously my GP and before surgery, because I have now formally withdrawn from the practice. I don't have a GP. I've been very clear I'm not going to register until these tamperings and this falsifying my records has been audited, so I don't have a GP currently. But I've withdrawn from the practice because I've documented on a number of occasions that people in leadership, the GPs in leadership, have tampered with and falsified my records to conceal my suicide risk, and which is a very serious thing to do. But the thing that pushed me to finally leave and was the final straw was 3 weeks ago. I had a suspicious vulvar lesion removed from very close to the clitoral area under a local anaesthetic at a new NHS trust, who were wonderful. They've been amazing. It's a trust that I hadn't been to about my facial pain. And the gynaecologist said to me before the procedure, make sure you get some strong painkillers because this is going to hurt. It's under a local anaesthetic and it's in a very sensitive area. I called the practice and I asked the dispensary team for a strong painkiller. And one of the leading GPs in leadership sent me a really nasty text basically saying no, get the hospital to prescribe it, and was really patronising and put strong painkillers in inverted commas as if I thought I needed them, when actually the consultant had said, you need these painkillers, it's going to hurt. So her refusal to, and that's the same GP that wrote the false depression reviews and deleted me going to A&E for suicidal feelings on May 17, 2024. So that, when I got that text from her saying, no, I'm not going to give you those painkillers, I thought I need to go. I mean, I just think it was just horrific for a woman, a sister, to deny another woman, a sister, pain relief, to have a vulvar lesion removed under local anaesthetic. It's not only a denial of care, it's just nasty. And I was like, no, I'm not standing by this kind of abuse. They're playing games now and it's hurting too much. So I wrote to the management 3 weeks ago and said that I was withdrawing on those grounds. So yeah, I don't have a GP. I'm not registering anywhere else until this has been looked into, which might be a long way because I don't think anyone's going to. But yeah, so I have withdrawn. I think that, I mean, I was all right, by the way, on that. I had a great gynecologist and he removed it safely and quickly. I was very fortunate, and I did have some discomfort afterwards, obviously, and it would have been nicer to have had stronger painkillers than paracetamol, but I was okay. And but the principle of it, I mean, I don't know many GPs that would deny a woman pain relief to have a vulvar lesion removed right next to her clitoral area, and you've got to be pretty nasty to do that. So I've gone, but I wanted to speak about the practice, and I wanted to raise this in the public interest because the harm is done with me, with them. What I've been through with them over the last 3 years with my records and the way they've treated me has been horrific. It's hurt so much. I've never felt so frightened, but I have withdrawn. And the harm is done. But my concern is that I've raised these disclosures about my records and the ICO have ignored it and the CQC have ignored it, and they probably will ignore it. But here's my concern. So in 2023 in August, there was a very serious incident at this practice. A man called John Leadbitter set fire to the practice when there were people in the building. Thankfully, nobody was hurt, and I am sorry to the practice. It was horrific. It was a tragedy, and I cannot imagine the fear that those staff members went through who were in the building. But it never came to light publicly why this man did it. He died in custody, and it never came to light. I did ask one of the local councillors who the one I see, and he did say to me, actually, what they told me publicly and what they told me privately were two different things, which does indicate we may not have had the full story. I've also asked people around if they knew, and a few people have said that they denied him appointments, which I can believe, but we don't know. I don't know, and I'm certainly not going to surmise. But yeah, there was a serious incident at this practice with an arson attack, which was terrible, and I'm certainly not condoning it. I'm just saying it was a very serious incident, and it therefore seems odd and more than a coincidence that 2 years I pop up with disclosures of record falsifying and, this are now being denied pain relief for a very sensitive excision. And here's my concern, is that the people in my experience who have been involved in both denying me that medication and in the falsifying of my records are people in leadership at this practice. And if the CQC, the GMC, NHS England ignore my disclosures, and, coupled with what happened in 2023, there's a strong likelihood that the people involved in this will continue to do what they're doing. They will think it's okay. They got away with it, and they'll keep doing it. Because if they're not challenged or scrutinised or held to account, why would they change? They'll keep doing it. And what I'm saying is in the public interest for the regulatory bodies to scrutinise and investigate the leadership at Ampleforth Surgery. I am telling you, I've been registered there 3 years. Something is not right there. There's something very nasty, very toxic, and very nasty and unethical. And I'm flagging it because I think it's not a coincidence that there's been two, in close proximity in 2 years with the fire. And again, I'm not condoning that fire. I'm just flagging it as a context for a serious incident that happened. And my disclosures are very serious. Tampering with records to conceal suicide risk is serious. And I therefore think it really is in the public interest to investigate this practice. I just want to say a couple of things before I finish this video. I guess what I want to say, I want to preface that what I'm about to say is difficult. And I want to say to anyone that's watching, I'm sorry if this is triggering what I'm about to say. I will not be saying it again, but I really need to say it. I've got nowhere else to say this, and I really, really need to say it. So I just want to apologise. I'm aware of you as a viewer. This could be triggering, and I'm sorry if it is. I'm going to make this as brief as possible, but I would like you to understand I really need to say what I'm about to say. Obviously, I've explained that NHS England have refused to honour my request for mental health support. And I am really, really struggling. I am struggling every day. And there is a big chance, in light of the fact that this is a lockdown, effectively, a complete systemic shutdown that I'm facing. And, some of you have messaged me and said, well, can't you just move? I've tried moving. I moved up to Scotland in 2020 and it just followed me. I got it more battered by NHS 5 and NHS loaded than I did down in England. So just moving to another location isn't going to stop this cycle. It needs stopping in its tracks. And until that happens, nothing will change. So therefore, being that nothing has changed and may not change, and it's very unlikely that my efforts, which I will be drawing to a close in early November, will breed change, because without media coverage or advocacy support, it's very unlikely. It's very hard for survivors like me to make movement. It's just a reality. So it is therefore quite likely that there may be a tragic end to my story. And I am coming to terms with that. And I'm saying that honestly. I'm not saying it's a given, but it's a possibility. And the thing I want to say that's so difficult is one of my fears, if it ends in tragedy, is about posthumous gaslighting and the lies and the cover-ups that would happen after a tragedy, if it happens, if my story ends in suicide. And I wanted to say a couple of things now, so it's on record. And I really am sorry if this is triggering. If I could not do this, I would, but I really do need to say this. Firstly, I fear that the actual event of me going would be covered up. I've had nothing but good experiences with North Yorkshire Police and West Yorkshire Police. I haven't had much to do with them, only welfare checks, but they've always been charming and very compassionate. So this isn't against them at all, but I do fear that potentially the police may cover it up, because the first point of call would be North Yorkshire County Council ignoring those safeguarding concerns, which is potentially a safeguarding scandal that undermines the whole concept of local governance. And it would be very easy to cover up. a suicide that has come from the tail end of such serious safeguarding failures. So my first fear is that it would be covered up by whoever. Not saying, and again, I'm not saying I've had very good experiences. I haven't had much to do with the police, but on welfare checks, they've always been charming and very supportive. But I'm talking generically, it's a fear. It's not an accusation, it is a fear. But I think the biggest fear is about posthumous gaslighting and covering up, that they'll all come out, these organisations, and lie and rewrite my story, and that the lies will win. And I can't stop that, obviously. You know, these are big organisations with lawyers and legal teams. They'll do what they do. But there's one thing that I am really, really, really determined that doesn't get covered up. And that is to do with one of the GPs at Amplify Surgery who has been falsifying my records. And I want to say what it is, and I want to say why. So one of the things she's done is she said that she did these 2 depression reviews with me, either side of a visit to A&E in 2023. Now, I've never met her, never spoken to her, I don't know who she is. They didn't happen. But if I'm not here, Amplify Surgery could very easily, and they probably already have, go in and fabricate some appointments for that time to say, look, we did these appointments. They may well have done that since my campaign went live. And if there's not an audit trail carried out to show that there was no appointments back in 2023 on those dates, on the 23rd and the 31st of March, a coroner would potentially believe that lie. And the same with her deleting that entry of me going to A&E on the 17th of May 2024. If they put that back now, which they may well have done since the video went live, which again is a criminal offence, you can see it's not there. The last photo I took, it's not there, that entry of me attending A&E. They believe it. And it looks like that there's, you know, I've asked the ICO to do an audit trail. I asked on X and they ignored me. So it's looking unlikely that anyone's going to do an audit trail of my records to uncover these 10, I think there's 10 documented tamperings in my video. And there may have been more since I went live with this. And it's unlikely that anyone's going to push for me to get an audit trail. Certainly if I'm not here, if no advocacy or MPs have shown any support, they're not going to suddenly come out of the woodwork when I'm not here and say, let's get this audit trail done. So I guess what I'm saying, and again, I'm sorry, as I'm saying, look, if I don't make it and if I'm not here and if this story ends in tragedy, then I'm asking, I want somebody with a backbone, would you please make sure that there's an audit trail done of those incidents? Because if there's not, this is not just about my integrity, you know, and you know, you might think, well, don't matter about your integrity. It matters to me. This is real shit. This has been happening. And this ain't a broken toenail that she's been deleting stuff about. This is my suicide risk. And that matters to me. This is safeguarding. But it matters to me about other people, because if this is covered up, you know, after the dust settles, and it does settle after tragedy, institutions move on. She goes, sweet, you know, she's gone, I've got away with it, sweet, next. And she carries on. And what I'm saying is, don't let this person carry on. This kind of conduct is not okay in practice, in general practice, in healthcare. And it needs to be challenged and it needs to be stopped. And I guess I'm saying, in the absence of any support coming forward, if my story ends in tragedy, I'm saying this, and I'm not going to say it again because I know it's triggering and I know it's very, very heavy content, and I'm sorry, but I'm really passionate about this. If the ICO are too spineless to do an audit trail of my records, then I'm asking somebody, God knows who, to please make sure that this person doesn't get away with this. Please. That's all I'm saying on that. I just want to briefly, before I finish, because I'm now at nearly half an hour and no one's going to stay with me for half an hour. If you're still here, thank you. I just want to explain what these silent diaries are that I've been posting. I mean, they're not very engaging. They're not getting any engagement really on X. They're a bit more engaging on TikTok because you can add music and stuff on TikTok. It's really cool. You can add sounds, and I've got a bit of a playlist going. I've been doing a bit of Sam Cooke and then a bit of dub music. Yeah, I've been trying to vibe them out. But effectively, they're documenting this silence from regulatory bodies in response to my campaign. And the reason I'm documenting is because it's an important, first of all, I'm doing it for myself because I want to show that I've had no response. But I'm also wanting to show generically, you know, what we're up against as patients when we bring complaints to regulatory bodies about harm and neglect and maltreatment, because they say they're there to protect the public, but are they? Because this silence that I'm documenting, this happens to a lot of us when we take complaints to the GMC, the PHSO, and other ombudsman and regulatory bodies. They deflect, they delay, and more often than not, that they cover for the institutions, for the reputation of the institutions, and the individual gets quashed. So these silent diaries are a way of documenting the generic story, that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It is about institutional silencing and how institutions do this. I mean, not always, some people are lucky, but a lot of the time they don't protect the public. It's a contradiction, really. And I think that until regulatory bodies really do start applying the duty of candor, which they don't, to real serious grievances like this, we'll never get redress as patients. We'll always be stuck in this lessons have been learnt culture when they haven't. So that's the point of what I'm doing. I'm going to continue to do them 3 times a week instead of 5, but they'll still document the day of silence, and they'll run on until about the first week of August, November, which is when I'll bring them to a close. And then in the other 2 days, I'm going to be posting snippets from my blog on X. It won't be on TikTok because I can't do that. But my blog is something I've been writing for 3 years about these challenges I've had with the healthcare system. And I'm now bringing that to a close, and I'm finalising it with 17 blog posts I'm really proud of. I mean, I'm no John Steinbeck, but I love to write. I've been writing for many, many years. And these posts are, my blog posts are written with a lot of passion, and yeah, I think they're quite insightful. So I'm going to be sharing those twice a week until the blog is finished. I'll be bringing that to a close as well at the end of November. And then I'll also be uploading my videos to YouTube so that they're available there, and on Vimeo, which is where they're also archived now. I don't think I'll be running them on after that, personally, because from a personal perspective, it's going to become publicly humiliating for me to be ignored like this, and to be consistently asking for support that isn't being honoured or responded to. And I don't want to be humiliated any more than I feel I am being. But also, I don't feel it's responsible to be posting content that's just heavy indefinitely. It feels like it needs to have a time limited thing. I just feel aware and mindful of viewers this might be triggering. So I will be continuing to about the first week of September documenting the silence, but I just wanted to explain what these silent diaries are and why I'm doing it. And they are important. I know they're not particularly engaging posts, but because they're your stories too. It's what we all face with institutions when they don't want to look at something that could unleash reputational damage. I also just wanted to briefly say I'm sorry if these posts have been heavy. This is a heavy story. It's about institutional abuse and institutional silencing, and it's been going on for many years, and I've needed to air it for myself, but for the public interest. So I am sorry if they have been triggering. I am trying to cover with trigger warnings to make them as, you know, as non-triggering as possible, but I am aware they are, but I am sorry if they've been heavy. I just wanted to say thank you to people that have been commenting on my posts, or reposting, or engaging or following me in any way with this heartbreaking journey that I am on. And I guess I just wanted to end, by returning to NHS England and to the Care Quality Commission about your continued silence, particularly in regard to my request for mental health support. I am asking you again for the 3rd time. It's a very simple request to please put some urgent mental health support in for me. I won't make it. I've said this. And if you choose to continue to ignore it, then I'm asking you to own your silence. It's a choice, a strategic choice, a very, very nasty and hurtful one. But it's a choice, and I'm asking you to own it. I feel it every day, and I want you to know that as well. I feel it every moment of every day. All of your silences. That this is what institutional silence does, and it's criminal. And that's what I'm trying to change through my
through my posts. Not that I probably will, because one woman can't make change, I don't think, really. But, you know, you can create ripples, can't you, to create awareness about the dangers of silencing. So I just wanted to explain that. And yeah, and listen, thank you if you've stayed with me for 35 minutes. It's the longest video I think I've ever done. I really do appreciate if you stayed with me for this long. And I'm sorry if it's been heavy. I've needed to say these things. You know, this is an incredibly tough situation I'm in, and I've needed to say it. And I hope that you haven't been too triggered, and please take care if you have. There are numbers at the beginning of this video with helplines you can call if you're struggling with your mental health too. And thank you so much, honestly, if you are following my journey and if you're supporting me with any comments. It really does mean the world. It really does. And if you stayed with me throughout this video, thank you so much for your patience and for your kind listening. Thank you so much. Thank you.